This is the fourth video in this tutorial series where I'm going to try to animate this skeleton model. And in the last video I left off working on the hands and had pretty much completed rebuilding them. A couple things I did behind the scenes was I rotated the pinky, and I did it using the same method as the index finger, except I only rotated it by 3 degrees, so I used the keyboard rather than the control pad when I rotated that. And I also renamed my finger bones, which, well, hopefully some folks will watch ahead in the video series before they name these finger bones the first time and not have to do it twice like me. But sometimes that happens. Now I used the same convention as original. I named the joints 1, 2, and 3 and assigned left and right assignments to them. And I've also parented these bones. As you can tell by my hierarchy here, they're all parented to the wrist. And I'll show that on the model. It's easier to show. So what I did was select each bone and just make it child of wrist. And only the bones in the beginning of these finger chains, so these 5 bones, are parented to the wrist. These bones already held parentage because they were subdivision bones, so this bone was already parented here into a chain. So those are fine the way they are. The next thing to do is to look at giving a control to the thumb. So first off, I'll make sure I'm in top view. Then I'll use number pad 4 to rotate until the view is inverted and up and down is flipped over on that. I'll snap my cursor to this first point in the first joint. Cursor to selection and add a bone. And do that to this hand as well. Snap the cursor, add a bone. I'll select the top pivot on both sides, grab it, limit Y, and just shrink it a little bit so it's not quite so huge. And then, well, I'll work on the side with the cursor first, and I just pressed number pad 7 so that flipped back around. So I'll rotate it back. Change my pivot back to 3D cursor because I want to rotate this. And I want to rotate it by the same amount as I did the thumb bone there, the thumb assembly. So I'll rotate it using the control key to 30 degrees. I'll repeat that on this hand. This time I'll need to snap the cursor there though. So I'll snap cursor to selection, select that bone, and rotate it by again 30 degrees. And return my pivot to median point. Next off, I'm going to add a bone to the fingertip. So snap my cursor there, add a bone, repeat on the other hand, snap my cursor, oops, accidentally had both sides selected there. and add a bone. And again, I'll leave this side selected. And try to stop making that same mistake. It's having a little keyboard malfunction there. And select the same bone on this side. Grab it, limit Y, and shrink it in. And this one I can shrink quite small. Now I'll name these two bones and give them parenting. This bone, which is on the right hand, I'll call thumb right. And I'll parent it to the right wrist. This bone, I'll call thumb IK right. IK as in the name of the constraint that will be added there. And I'll parent it to the thumb L bone, which is, the thumb right bone. Got myself mixed up there. So this bone is parented to the wrist, and this bone is parented to the controller bone. And this is what it will look like, the line of parentage is showing here. The next thing to do will be to add the IK constraint. So I'll enter pose mode with the two bones selected, and that constraint's already there by accident from my experiments. So I'll use Shift I, add IK constraint to active bone. The constraint snaps to the center point. That's because we need to define a chain length. So I'll define the chain length as 3. Now when we look, the chain length is 1, 2, 3. So it goes to this pivot. And with that done, this thumb is now controllable. And we can rotate it and make it curl by using scaling the S key. So resize that big bone will make that thumb curl. As well, we can curl and rotate in the same action to get the finger to close. And I'm going to cut out of my video. I'll clear that transformation first, and I'm going to cut out of my video and check on how much time I've used up here and be back in just a second. Well, I don't have very much time left. I quickly repeated the same process of parenting and adding the IK constraint to the other hand, and I'm going to quickly demonstrate what I'm going to do to the rest of the fingers. So I'll start off by snapping my cursor to the same point in the start of the index finger, looking at it from a front view this time, and add a bone. And then I'll snap my cursor to the tip, look at it from a front view, and add a bone. And I'm going to repeat this for the remaining fingers, the remaining 7 fingers, without doing any resizing. And in the next video, we'll resize these as big groups and start adding and add the parentage and constraints to these as well. And that'll mostly finish up this hand. So I'll come back in the next video with that done, and we'll see where we're at from there. So until then, happy modeling.